Two men should not be married.
Homophobic.
I don't believe that you should be able to change your sex.
Transphobic.
Men and women are created equal, but they are not the same.
You're misogynistic.
Jesus is the only way to heaven.
And intolerant. Ha! I win.
I'm also pro-gun.
Wow. Welcome back to Cradle and Convert. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Weston.
So obviously that intro was
a little ridiculous.
Yeah. So kind of proving a point a little bit. Just showing how ridiculous sometimes conversations and arguments can be nowadays.
Right.
So
we decided to come up with this topic because 3 weekends ago my grandmother passed away, and my mom's side is very Lutheran and then mixed in with a bunch of other different denominations of Christianity, a little bit of atheism, and Mormons. I don't know if they're technically Christians.
No, because Mormons don't believe Jesus is...
That's right. Okay.
Jesus is not God.
See, I don't know everything about everything. So I had...
You just admitted you don't know everything?
I know.
Oh my gosh.
Shocker. My wife's going to take this video and be like, Weston, see? You said it.
You post pictures with you quoting?
Yes. Quotes by Weston. I don't know everything. But yes, I was able to have multiple conversations with different people. One was with an atheist, another one was with a Mormon, and then the other one was with a Christian, claimed that she was a deist. It was a very interesting conversation to have.
Mm-hmm. Deist saying what exactly?
Deist saying that Jesus Christ is a demigod, and that God is kind of like the clockwork God, that he created everything, but actually doesn't get involved.
Kind of predestination, kind of a...
Right.
Yeah.
Which kind of contradicts the fact that Jesus is here, but hey. But yeah, so during this entire time, no one got angry, no one was upset, no one was offended. I even made sure that I made sure to claim my stand, like, look, I'm just curious about your opinion. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of wanted to talk about that today. How do you have these conversations without getting somebody upset and with actually sharing what you believe and listening to what they believe?
Because it's perfectly fine to disagree on something,
right?
Absolutely. In faith or whatever. It's just that it seems like nowadays we don't really know how to have a civil conversation about this. It just kind of gets, well, you don't understand where I'm coming from. Well, you don't understand this. And, it gets into yelling and all this stuff. And, we shouldn't do that. And neither should the person that we're disagreeing with, right? Like, we want to have a civil conversation. Like, we can civilly disagree on something. Yeah. It's just that I don't think people really know how to anymore, which is really unfortunate.
People are just so uncomfortable with the fact of sharing different opinions. They believe that, as we stated, that you're racist, you're a bigot, you're any of these different names that people want to throw at it in order to not actually have a civil conversation, having to prove their side and understand with facts and logic on why they believe what they believe and how they came to these conclusions. I even noticed when I was talking with the deist that her husband actually was feeling very uncomfortable at the time. And he came over and eventually came to the point where he's like, okay, well, we got to go talk to people. It's like, oh, okay, well. I mean, we were perfectly fine. We were having a very wonderful conversation. And we stretched it out probably for a good 10, 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And it was just asking each other questions.
Yeah, I've definitely had conversations like that before. Once at work with, when I was a bartender, I had some conversations with some of my women co-workers about being, one of the jobs that you could have on campus, actually the highest paying job on campus, was being a nude model for the art classes. Right. And so one of my other coworkers, that was her second job. And so that's why she wasn't there for work. And so I just brought up the conversation, just very casually, like, okay, well, she can do that, but should she? Right. And it was a very civil conversation. Right. And with people that definitely opposed me. But yeah, I definitely had one of my coworkers who was like, well, we're having an illogical conversation, all these things, once I brought up your body's not your soul, these kind of things. Like, obviously it's a very specific, argument that was brought up and stuff too. And I saw where we had some civil conversations about it, but where it also kind of got into the name calling and things, and you're just wrong because you're wrong. Yeah. And that's not a good conversation. Yeah.
And it's very dangerous. And when somebody says something's illogical, you have to go, well, what's illogical about it? Because something can be unscientific. So such is the case of souls. Soul is not a scientific realm. Yeah. We don't believe that you can prove the existence of a soul via science. I don't believe that you can prove God completely on the existence of science.
Someone's tried, actually. How much does a soul weigh? Like, that's actually
that was a fascinating study, actually, to look at. That was pretty cool. Yeah. But anyways, so we want to give some case and pointers on things to remember. So something to remember when you're going into a conversation, leave emotions out of it. This is not an emotional conversation to be having. When emotions get high, people start name calling, and what you say doesn't matter anymore. It creates a complete wall that shuts people down. So leave emotions out of it. Probably the most important thing to go into, be educated. Books. Read books. Why We Are Catholic? Great book to start off at. This book is actually from Catholic Answers. It is a multiple book series. I bought the whole thing. It's very easy to go through, simple, 20 questions, just laid right out, and ask really the question, and then they answer it.
They're in a Q&A session. It's, Q&A format. That's what I would say, Q&A format. Yeah, it's a good series. I've read a couple of the different ones, and they're
really cool. So remember, too, when you're going into these, ask questions. Don't just make assertions, and understand the other person's point of view.
Yeah. The first thing you should do is seek understanding, because then you know where their mind is at, and you can discuss certain things. But if you're on a different level from each other and you're just not understanding each other, then you don't really have a good conversation to begin with, because you're not meeting each other where you're at.
Right. So a case in point, finding common ground.
Yeah.
Make sure that you find something in common that you can both relate to and understanding, and that's where the asking questions right away comes in. What do you believe? Why do you believe it? Oh, okay, well, we believe this same thing, or this is what we believe, but I think it's really close. And so here's where the differences lie. And doing that really helps to understand it's trying to pull each other towards an understanding versus trying to tear each other apart and saying, no, you're wrong because of this, and I have all this evidence. And I've totally talked with people that they did make illogical conversation. Why do they make illogical conversations? Because I could prove that it was illogical through a series of questioning, and when they came to the end of the question, they go, oh, well, yeah, I guess what I was saying doesn't really make sense. That's okay. And that takes a very big person to, at the end of that, go, yeah, what I say doesn't actually make sense.
What I've done before and what I was saying is not right. And you really have to swallow your pride a lot to be able to say that. And I respect anyone that does that, for sure. It takes a lot.
Oh, yeah. And make sure that when you're asking these questions that you show genuine interest in what they're doing. You can view it almost as like a research experiment in a way. Don't be that harsh about it, because that's a little cold at times. But be like, I'm really interested in why you think the way you do, why you understand things the way you do. Is there something that I don't, that I'm missing the gap? Don't be afraid to have an open mind to people who have different opinions of you. And that's one thing. I always go into a conversation stating that if you know something I don't, and if I believe that there is very solid evidence for why you believe, I will change my mind. I'm Catholic because that happened. I had an open conversation where I was like, okay, let's talk this out. I didn't know everything up front. So I said, okay, well, I have to go back and research these things, which is another key point. It's perfectly okay to walk away and say, look, I got to research that. I just don't know that. I know that these educated people teach on it, but I don't know exactly what they teach. So I got to figure out the details of it. Yeah.
I've had to do that many times. Especially when arguing with him. Before he was Catholic. Because Wes would bring up something and be like, dude, I have no idea. Like, I grew up Catholic. Like, I just believe it because the Catholic Church doesn't believe it. Which...
It wasn't enough for me.
And it shouldn't be enough for you either. Like, there's not a very good basis for disagreeing on anything. Because, but even if you do disagree with something, and even if, morally speaking, right, like, fundamental truth, like, is still in your court, like, you can still learn, even if you're disagreeing with someone else, more about your own topic, too.
Right.
And like, oh, well, I've never thought about this disagreement. I need to research that now on this, too, and understand why, that argument isn't valid either, right? So it gets you to also learn your own topic even more too, and see where your own kind of holes are, and you can just fill up that more with more of the research.
Right. So asking questions also creates direction of conversation. So because when I was having these discussions, I was able to ask questions that steered the direction in kind of the positions that I wanted to, more like guiding the conversation through a narrow way. It's as if you're a boat on a river. You can either choose to go against the current and collide into the sides the entire way down, or you can guide it and just smoothly take it to the destination. Thus brings in the point, use analogies. People appreciate it. One of the things that I was talking about with the deist actually was good and evil. What are good and evil? Sheep stated the point that, without evil, there is no good. Or without good, there is no evil. So they're coexistent. They need each other. And I said, I actually disagree with that standpoint. Here's why. Heat and cold are not coexistent. Cold is a word that we use to describe a lack of heat. All heat is molecules smashing back and forth, specifically atoms, just smashing back and forth, creating friction, creating heat. If you wanted to get rid of all heat, you'd have to go to absolute zero, which is stopping time at that point, because nothing's moving. And I don't know if we could ever hit that point. I don't think we could. If we did, we wouldn't know it. That'd be really interesting. Anyways, but by using this analogy, I was able to point out that evil does not have to exist. Evil is nothing more than the absence of good. And if God is all good, then the absence of God is what we would call evil. But God can exist without this. There's nothing that says, if God's infinite, God's all good, all powerful and everything, there's nothing that states that evil has to exist. So, and that would be heaven.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, Jesus talked in parables a lot. That's why he talked in parables, right? Because, the Jews at the time and just don't necessarily understand the spiritual things. Well, what do they understand? Well, the physical things that we, see and touch and all these things. And so he uses these kind of analogies and things that we understand on a physical level to explain the spiritual level of things too. And so it's very good to use those same sort of analogies in different ways to help, people who are seeking understanding in something, or, a way that they can kind of like, oh, well, I understand what you mean by the hot and cold thing. Like, that makes sense now that you apply that to the whole good and evil thing. It really helps too, because people can not physically see, but can understand more about what you're getting at.
Right.
Which is very good.
Yeah. So some things to avoid when you're going into a conversation. One was the emotional thing, so we talked about that. Keep emotions out of it. Not only your emotion, but their emotion. Remember when I said asking questions is like steering the conversation? If you start to see that somebody is getting more emotionally invested into something, it's okay to pull back and ask a less deep question that they may be getting frustrated on, or ask a different question that steers the conversation in a different way. You don't have to keep going down the same path to kind of like smash your point into their head. Be like, no, my point is this, therefore you are wrong. Second point, don't state that someone's wrong. That was sure way to get somebody's emotions going.
Yeah. Exactly. And also, it's okay to disagree. I think we said that before, but I don't remember. Okay. Yeah. And you also don't do the converting, right? When it comes to faith topics. It's Jesus through you, right? Like, Jesus is the one who converts hearts, right? Like, we can state the truth and, talk about our point and stuff, but ultimately, it's not on you. Thank God, it's not on us, right? To do the converting or anything. Like, it's up to Jesus and, and the person's free will. So the best you can do is just continue to talk into that truth and pray for them, right?
Right. Yeah, I personally like Aristotelian philosophy and talking about the difference between virtues and vices, and something to ask yourself, is this the right place at the right time, and am I doing this in the right way in order to have a good, successful conversation?
Should really be Holy Spirit led.
Right.
These conversations.
And what do we mean by that? We don't mean, Holy Spirit, come to me, speak your words into my mouth, and then I'm not here. I'm just not here. Holy Spirit's not talking. No, it's not going to be that drastic. It will be the fact that you're like, I'm really feeling drawn to this person right now that I have to engage in a conversation with them. And sometimes faith conversations come up from random conversations. Funeral is just a really good time to express each other's faiths.
It's kind of a natural place for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you have to be selective about the person, because there were definitely certain people that I did not want to have this conversation with. There were other ones I was totally okay with doing it. So some of the Mormons, I was okay with doing one of them because we're totally cool like that. She's chill. She's an awesome woman. And we were able to have a really good dialogue. She was actually ex-Catholic. And we were able to kind of discuss some different points. Neither of us getting emotional, neither saying that either one's religion is false, neither one throwing accusations at one another. I was just really curious in why she was the way she was, why she became a Mormon. And she was, in turn, curious why I became a Catholic. And so we had a nice, friendly conversation. So the atheist was the one that I probably had the most troubles with, in the fact that, not of actually the debate, but making sure that emotions stayed out of it, and making sure that, basically that we were both talking the same language. It's a common problem. Mm-hmm. Atheists are not my favorite people to have discussions with, just because the fact that they put themselves a lot of the time on this quote-unquote higher ground. They believe that science can prove everything, and anything beyond science it's bupkis. And that is a terrible way to go into a conversation when you can...
not very open.
Right. You can see it a lot with actually atheists that are on debates on YouTube and different things. Like Richard Dawkins is a fantastic example of somebody who is just, I'm never going to hear what you say because I'm so right. There's no point. I'm surprised that people even still debate him anymore, because I get it that people flock to him because they're like, oh, well, he writes these books, therefore he's educated and he has degrees. I actually don't know if he has degrees or not. I just assume that he is honorary degrees in practically nothing. But anyways, so don't say that to somebody. That's a way not to go about it.
That's not a way to win someone over to your side.
Right. I don't ever plan on having a conversation with him or talking with him. So
yeah, we could kind of see that a little bit too, as far as the whole just telling people the wrong kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And you remember when we were on campus? I don't know if you've ever seen this, when the fire and brimstone people came to campus. Yeah. The once Pretty a year, common. Yeah, the fire and brimstone denomination. I think they were kind of
Baptist, actually.
I don't know what
there were some specific Baptists. I'm not saying all Baptists are like this, but yeah, they were fire and brimstone all the way.
Yeah, it was two of them, and they come on campus every year, and they basically just start yelling at the students, saying that they're wrong and they're going to hell and all these things too. And which is kind of funny, actually, because Tyler, the Focus team director, regional director, came down to campus the one day too, and we were just hanging out on campus a little bit too, and we're just talking about how that doesn't really help win people over to Christ very well too, right? And it got pretty.
It was heated.
It was very. Heated.
There were cops there.
Oh yeah,
multiple times.
Make sure to protect.
we were actually playing Coob right next to him. This Newman group. We were wearing Catholic shirts. Yeah. I mean, we had jewelry on, and everything clearly stated that we were very Catholic. Yeah. And we were just playing a game, and the officers come right up with us, and they're like, "Thank you for being the only civil people right now in this area. This is ridiculous. We really appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah,
we have no idea what." Both sides, because both sides were yelling, and it's just terrible.
I mean, we just take people from there and just be like, "Hey, you want to play some Coob with us?" Just so what do you think about these guys?
Yeah,
right. And we have a civil conversation,
right?
Yeah, it didn't get out of hand in our court, and we didn't have women taking their shirts off and random things. So, yeah,
it just gets to be ridiculous sometimes, and that's kind of like a Catholic position too. And that's why I feel so comfortable talking to pretty much anybody, unless somebody is completely shut down from the conversation and there's really no point in having the discussion. Is I understand my faith, and I understand why I chose to be Catholic, and I understand where that belief comes from. And having that core principle and that core understanding is really what sets me up for all my conversations. Being really good at philosophy, understanding philosophy helps a lot too. Being able to relate to people through certain situations. This is probably why converts make such good converts. Apologists. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Is because we were in a different place. We actually had to make the choice to convert into what we're believing. Not to say that Cradles don't have to make a choice at some point. They do. You have to keep the choice to keep going. But it's different.
It's a little bit of a different point of view. Yeah. But I mean, you're also gonna not be offended if someone's going to disagree with you, right? You have enough foundation.
I have a thick skin.
Yeah, you just be like, okay, you disagree with me, don't worry about it.
Yeah, and I a lot of times when I'm talking, I just like to really enjoy the conversation, and that's one thing that I've noticed, especially more as the society goes on, is people are becoming worse and worse at conversations, but yet when they get in one, they get excited and they were like, oh, we're having conversation. This is awesome. Like, you're new. I like you. You like me. Oh, this is cool. Like, we don't have that anymore with, I'm not a technology hater. I really do enjoy technology. I like video games. I like computers. I built my own computer. I have a phone. I like my phone. It does a lot of stuff for me, but I don't absorb myself in it. Facebook. I don't remember the last time I honestly posted something on Facebook. I don't have Twitter. I don't give into the whole social media thing. I really and generally enjoy having conversations. And right now you can kind of see that I'm getting kind of excited because I'm treating this like a conversation with you and me.
They don't talk back, though.
I know. But isn't that the way the conversation is supposed to go? I talk, you listen, that's it! No, that's
completely wrong.
But we thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions or any situations that you've had difficulties in, please leave them in the comments below and we'll make sure to reach out to you, or we'll make sure that we do a second video later describing some of these. And if you don't want your name posted, put it in the comment. Don't post my name. Just use this as an example.
Right.
We'll totally do that for you too.
Yeah, we like to keep things as anonymous as possible.
Right, except for in the last video where we called out Jake, because we know Jake. He's a friend of ours.
Yeah. Right.
He's a good guy.
So don't forget to comment, subscribe,
like,
but most importantly,
pray. Do your research!